I'm not impressed by you working a 60-hour work week. In fact, if you tell me something like that, it's going to cause me to want to dive deeper into how you're spending your time, because there's probably a lot of inefficiency happening inside of your life.
Hey, it's Brad here. And before we get into the show, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Next Insurance. You know, this time of year, a lot of us contractors are looking back at the jobs we did, the good ones, the never again ones, and trying to tighten up things for the new year. And one thing that nobody likes thinking about is insurance, until the day you wish you had it. A customer slips on a wet floor, a tool breaks right in the middle of a job, a supplier screws up, and you're left eating the cost. You can lose thousands overnight. And most folks only realize they need insurance when something already went sideways. That's why I really like what Next Insurance is doing. They've made business insurance so simple it almost feels wrong. You just answer a few quick questions online and boom, they tell you exactly what coverage your business needs and you're insured in minutes. No sitting on hold, no paperwork, no I'll get back to you nonsense. Next is built for builders, contractors, tradespeople, or anyone running their own shop. And policies start as low as $29 a month, and you can get your certificate of insurance instantly, which means no more waiting to start the job. End the year with some peace of mind and roll into 2026 knowing you're protected. Get covered in minutes at nextinsurance.com/hammer. Now let's get back to the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Brad, and today I have another special guest with me, Jake Isaacs with Gather the Kings. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brad. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to get into some good stuff here. But before we get into that, give us just a kind of a quick overview, a 30,000-foot view, who you are, what you do, and just give us a little teaser.
Yeah. Well, my business partner lovingly gave me the title of serial integrator. And if we have any EOS fans out there, he's the visionary of the organization. I'm the integrator of the organization. And that is what I've been doing my entire career. I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different industries as the number two, getting businesses set up. And I just have this passion for taking chaos and turning it into clarity.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm glad you said that. I didn't know that specifically about you, but I'm glad you said that because that gives us a lot of information to talk about.
Absolutely.
So, you know, a lot of my listeners are smaller organizations, kind of mom and pops, you know, less than 10 employees. So like the EOS system doesn't fully fit that size. However, almost all of them need a strong number two person, right? They need an integrator. And so like that, trying to find that person can be very difficult for some people. And so like that conversation alone is definitely worth having.
Yeah. You know, Brad, regardless of what the size of the organization is, it's important that you are setting up systems and processes in everything that you do, whether that's following the EOS system or something like Pinnacle Business Solutions. There are a lot of different operating systems out there that a business owner can subscribe to. The most important thing is that you're trying to organize your processes and systems somehow. So,
yeah, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, right? Kind of creating those systems, how to set that up and make sure that you have in it. Because I mean, I had a conversation, I guess it was 2 weeks ago with a potential client, and they're doing a little over $6 million in revenue, and they have about 20 employees, and he still runs it out of his head. I mean, just complete, everything, every decision's made out of his head, scheduling, everything, and I'm like. And he reached out for systems. Like that was, he's like, I need to get some systems in place. And like the thought or the idea of like someone who has 20 employees doing that kind of revenue and still running out of your head, like I would be exhausted, like trying to do that.
Yeah. Most people get in business because they believe they can do the widget better, right? Whatever that service or product is. And the idea, like the big goal is that you build it so you can sell it and exit. And, there's something sexy about a 7, 8, 9 figure exit that people believe that they want. But if they're not putting processes in place, they're never going to get to that point because no one's going to buy what's in your head. It needs to be a duplicatable process. And so you might have a unique way of doing something, but if it's not documented and you're not teaching other people how to do your unique way of doing things, then you don't have anything that you can actually sell.
Well, and I would even add, like, even if you have no plans on exiting, like, it still makes your life and your business much easier.
100%.
One of the best advice I got when I started my business was, and I think it was in the E-Myth who said it. It's been a minute since I read that, but he's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You should set your business up and plan on franchising it. Like, that should be the goal, is to franchise your business, because you have to have those systems in place in order to do a franchise. And even if you never franchise your business, then you will have a solid foundation. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. Right. If an exit isn't what you're going to, but you want time freedom inside of your life, if you're the single point or the choke point for all decisions inside of your business, then you can't ever be free. You can't ever have that time with your family or your friends, or to spend, 2 weeks in the backwoods hunting elk, if you don't have processes built inside of the business.
Yeah, 100%. So let's hit it from this angle. You're a serial integrator. If I am looking for an integrator, and really it's a fancy word for like someone that can help, put the systems in place, help run, business in a sense, what's the first step? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah. First of all, I think that there needs to be a recognition that people that hold my skill set, it's not very common.
Right.
Inside of the book Rocket Fuel, Gino Wickman talked about how there's one integrator to every 3 visionaries. And so most business owners in their careers will have to go through multiple people to find that running mate that can really take their vision and turn it into a reality. And so the first thing that you need to do if you're on the hunt for that operational minded person is to let your network know. Just be open and honest with the people around you that you're looking for someone to come in and help you run your business. Because you just don't know who is lurking inside of your network. Could be a high valued employee of a buddy's business, or, someone who is getting out of a corporate career and wants to make a change.
And that includes even your customers, right? Like,
correct.
You should be marketing or getting that information out to your customers as well.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people think that's like a weakness or something, like, oh, if my customers know I'm trying to hire someone, then they may not want to hire me again. And that's just a limiting belief.
Yes. I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way you position that is like, hey, growth is a good thing. We're wanting to get better. We want to improve. We want to continue to serve you as my client better. And we're always looking to optimize. And this is the next hire that we feel like we need in order to optimize our business.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, share a little bit about your experience with, or, coming to realizing and being the bottleneck, and that, knowing that you needed to be able to start integrating things for other people.
Yeah. I had my first opportunity to build teams and build systems inside of my first kind of big boy corporate job. I was working for a telecommunications company in Kansas City, and they needed to build out a new department with a call center so they could handle inbound calls from different clientele. And so it was just really organizing things, making sure that people were following scripts, making sure that everything was documented and communicated well as we were bringing people in so they could follow the playbook. Grew up as an athlete, playing sports, and just understood the need for everyone on the team being on the same page. And so it just made sense that inside of corporate America, we were putting the same things in place that I had done as an athlete up to that point in my life. And so really built that out, and saw how easy my life became once the systems and processes were in place. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit of front-loaded effort, but once the process is in place and everyone's following it, it becomes easy on the leader to just refer people back to the system or refer people back to the SOP that's been created.
Yeah, that's so you had that like initial realization when you were building the teams for the telecommunication company. You kind of saw how stuff was operating without needing you there on a daily basis. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
And then how have you taken that on to other businesses or other opportunities?
Yeah. So shortly after that opportunity, a buddy of mine who had exited the military decided that he wanted to buy a local moving company and wanted help growing that business. And so I came on as just kind of the number 2 in that organization. We were able to take it from, one truck, just a couple $100,000 in revenue, and we grew it very quickly to 7 trucks and, multi 7-figure business. And it was just about duplicating a system that worked, right? If we could figure out how to organize and run a crew on one truck well, we knew that we could stamp that out and duplicate it through multiple trucks. And then it just became a game of marketing. So we grew our volume in order to like duplicate multiple trucks doing the exact same thing. And so we were able to just take that knowledge and grow the moving company. It's funny that you mentioned building a franchise system at the top of the podcast, because that's what we did. We realized early on that we had a duplicatable system and we wanted to start the process of franchising it. So we went through the process of franchising that business, making sure that, all of the due diligence was done, the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, so we could go out and sell franchises and support other locations in that franchise model.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. And then was that the last place that you were at, or have you other opportunities to be able to do that?
Yeah, no, I've had other opportunities since then. I left that organization and moved down to Dallas, and I got my start working in the hospitality industry. I worked for Hilton and Marriott for 10 years as kind of a fixer, traveling around from underperforming hotel to underperforming hotel across the country and just kind of turning them around. What most people don't know about the hospitality industry, or specifically about hotels, is their franchises. And so a family-owned business or a conglomerate owns a portfolio of hotels, but you're franchising that Hilton or that Marriott name on the outside of the building. And if you're not upholding standards around cleanliness, around customer service, around just general upkeep of the building, they'll come in and they'll pull their name off of the building. And so where I kind of made my living inside of the hospitality industry was taking a hotel that was a quarter or two away from getting their flag pulled and just getting in, bringing everything back to the studs, bare bones minimum, and setting up systems and processes that we could then duplicate in order to clean up the hotel, turn around customer service, increase revenue, and keep that flag for that business under the Hilton or the Marriott name.
This is really interesting, because I know that this segues perfectly with contractors. So when your experience of going to these franchise locations and turning them around, was it just the lack of systems that really was preventing them from having that success, or was it something else, like they needed to replace the general manager? I mean, what was your experience in that?
Yeah. Typically what I saw happen is there was a disconnect from the ownership to the boots on the ground management. And I could get an idea by looking at a P&L for the last 3 years of kind of what condition the hotel was in, because if it's something that they weren't willing to invest back into, you knew that it was deteriorating. And as the hotel deteriorated, customer service went down. People didn't have the same level of pride inside of their work because they didn't come into a clean, nice looking building. So all of that stuff snowballed.
Uh-huh.
And so really it was making sure that when I came in, I could bridge the gap between the on-property management and the ownership group to reprioritize, how the hotel was invested in, where the money was going, and what type of systems were in place. It was varied depending on geographic location or depending on, type of hotel, but it always boiled down to customer service, sales, and cleanliness. And, that dog will hunt in any business that you walk into. It's going to be about sales and customer service, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. The customer experience, the overall experience the customer has, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's interesting. And you can elaborate on this, but obviously if a company is not making good profits and then things start to fall off, like, repairs, service, it's very difficult to turn that around, or it takes a long time, or you have to have a lot infusion of cash in order to go in and make a bunch of, capital improvements. And so, the point of all this is like, you have to make sure you have a profitable business to start with.
Yes. Need to make sure that you have a profitable business, but also need to understand that, where the priorities are. A lot of the businesses that I would come into, the ownership group was unwilling to put any money into capital improvements because they weren't sure that investment was going to be worth it. If you're 3 months away from losing the ability to call your hotel a Marriott, you don't want to spend $2 or $3 million in a renovation package because you're not sure if you're going to get that out. And so it was making sure that when I came into those hotels, that there was an agreement of, I understand I can't get that CapEx money, but we're going to, make sure that we're spending everything that we have budgeted for linen replacement or for maintenance. And I just learned very early on that sometimes you've got to spend money in order to make money. An example, Brad, is, when I first started my career in hospitality, I was actually a maintenance guy. I had gotten divorced and moved to Dallas, and I was running kind of a home handyman company before my divorce and before my move. And a buddy of mine came to me and said, "Hey, I'm in need of a maintenance guy at a couple of Marriott properties. I know that you're in this transition period. Why don't you come screw in some light bulbs and plunge some toilets for me? And that'll help you get on your feet, and it'll greatly help me." So that's what I did. And as I got into the business and started learning about hospitality and what was needed, I quickly advanced through the ranks. But I was a maintenance guy at a hotel, and we had a room, and this property was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, very close to Cowboys Stadium. And it was making at that time about $130 a night is what we could charge for that room. And we had this room that was out of order, so we weren't selling it because the toilet was running. And the general manager was unwilling at the time to spend the money to get a new toilet flapper so I could install that into the toilet. And so we were losing $130 a night for a $5 fix. But because he couldn't afford the $5 fix on the budget, we were losing thousands of dollars, over 30 days because he had to wait until his budget cycle renewed in order to spend that $5. That's just throwing bad money at a situation instead of, understanding the bigger picture.
Yeah. I wouldn't just paid the $5 out of my own pocket. Just, what I mean?
Exactly.
At that point. It shows that like sometimes we get ideas or we get certain perspectives stuck in our head, and then we just stay with that, and we don't actually seek outside help or seek an expert to come in and kind of unlock those. And I think that's a perfect example of how we can get stuck in certain ways of thinking in our business.
Yeah, it helps to have a fresh perspective, to bring someone new in, whether that's a coach or whether you're part of a community that you can bounce ideas off of, or you're bringing in new talent at the leadership level inside of the business in order to bring a fresh perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of the people that don't know anything about EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, it's just a system that was developed to help entrepreneurs and their businesses to kind of categorize a visionary and an integrator, or is it integrator, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I always get confused with the implementer, the guy who runs it. But anyways, the integrator is the guy who, he's the one that helps basically set up the systems and make things happen in the business. And the visionary is the one that comes up with the crazy ideas and daydreams all day. And, the integrator's got to be like, no, we're not doing that right now. We're going to wait till next year to do those things. So a lot of contractors, I would say, probably aren't necessarily visionaries, like in the true sense of a visionary. They are visionaries because they started their own business, but they're not out there trying to create the next Apple phone, or the next, SpaceX or whatever, right? Like they're just trying to run a business. So why do I need to have an integrator? Like I'm not this super visionary, but why do I need to have an integrator?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I think that what I see, at least in the people that I work with a lot, Brad, is, you as the owner of the local plumbing company or the electrician or, whatever it is, you were just arrogant enough to believe at one time that you could do it better than you were being told to do it in your own job. And so you left to do it your own way. Right. And so from that aspect, there is visionary-esque qualities to who you are. Right. And so the reason why an integrator is really important inside of your business is because it can help take some of those thoughts and those ideas that you have and organize them down into systematic step-by-step approach about what you need to do next inside of your business. You may be able to see, I want to have 30 trucks on the road and I want the branding to look like this and I want all of that stuff. But when you bring it back to a very tactical boots on the ground level, you don't know how to go and get the contracts to buy those trucks. You don't know how to find the vendor that can put the wrap on the trucks. You don't know how to get the graphic designer involved in order to take the idea of this logo to a place where it can be on the side of a vehicle. And, people like me can help you come in and take those ideas out of your head and apply them into today we're going to do this, and next week we're going to do this, and next month we're going to do this. And all of a sudden, 6 months down the road, this idea that was in your head is now sitting in the parking lot in front of your building.
Yeah, that's a great visual. What about, I see this a lot too. It's like there's a lot of scarcity mindset. Like, well, I hire a guy, train him up, and then he goes starts his own business, and now he's a competitor. And so, like, if I hire somebody like you to come in and like you're inside my brain and you know everything about, like, I'm, a lot of fear of like you're going to take that information and go or whatever. Like, what can you say to kind of reassure someone? Because I would imagine like you as a number two, you really don't necessarily have the aspirations to start your own business. Is that fair?
Yeah,
or no?
No, that's a good point. Most number twos, when we look at the visionary integrator relationship, think about a gas pedal and brake pedal inside of the car, right? Visionary is very much all gas, right? We're putting the pedal to the metal. We're going forward as fast as we can. That integrator tends to be more brake. They tend to, try to figure out ways to drive profit. They're looking for security. They're looking for safety, right? And so they're unwilling from a personality standpoint to take the same type of risks that the visionary is. And so in this example that you're talking about, most integrators are not willing to plant their own flag in the ground because they can't make it work on their own. They can't be the visionary on their own, And so they're not looking to try to do their own thing. To speak specifically to the mindset of scarcity, you've got to check yourself on that, because if you're not training someone because you think that they're going to steal that knowledge and do something nefarious with it in the future, then you're never going to be able to grow your business, right? You have to let go of all of that, right? You need to train people in order to be better than you at what they're doing, because that's how you serve your customers and that's how you differentiate yourself inside of the market. If you hold the knowledge close because you don't want to be ripped off and you don't want someone to be your competitor, then why are you in business in the first place? Go get a job.
Yeah, that's really good. So like from an integrator standpoint, a number two standpoint, like really, I don't want to say they lack vision, but the vision is not their like strong suit. They're good at organizing. Would that be
correct?
Fair?
100%.
There's a commercial. There was a company, I don't know if it was in the 80s or 90s, BASF. You know what I'm talking about? They're like a technology company.
No, I'm not familiar.
Well, I'm probably aging myself a little bit, but there's like in the 80s or 90s. I still remember this. There was a commercial that was beyond, and it's like at BASF, we do this and this and this and this, and it's like, they said we don't make a lot of the products that we sell. We make a lot of the products that we sell better. And so like this company comes in and like makes a product better in order to sell it. And that's what I think of like an integrator. They come in and make the visionary or the initial product and they make it better.
Yes, 100%. Right. When I look at the role specifically in my past, right, relationships with people that I've worked with, or my current relationship with my business partner, right? He is the strategic thinker. He's the person that's going to develop the strategic partnerships and relationships. He's the person that's out front marketing the company. I'm developing the relationship with the employees. I'm doing the training. I'm making sure that everyone knows what the holiday schedule is and things like that. Those things are just not what he's focused on. And if he's in a situation where he has to focus on those, the team's actually going to suffer because his mind isn't wired that way. And that's not a fault of his own. He recognized that and we partnered together in order to fill some of those gaps.
Yeah. So, and for a lot of contractors, again, going back to the mom and pop, don't get caught up on the integrator visionary kind of language. I mean, for a lot of these guys, we're talking about like an office manager, right? We can kind of use integrator, office manager, general manager as like, interchangeable terms. We're really just looking for someone that can come in, take ideas, put them into a process, run the day-to-day kind of thing, and free up the owner or the visionary to focus on higher value tasks, to focus on, creating new things or making things better in terms of refining the product or whatever it is. Would you agree with that, or am I off on that?
No, Brad, I would 100% agree with that. And in fact, I would probably take it a step down the ladder a little bit. You have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to communicate your desires to people. And if you're doing that with a high value employee who's a director of operations or an integrator or a COO or something like that, you're paying a lot of money for that employee. My recommendation is, if you're starting out, go get yourself an executive assistant. Exactly what you said. Get someone inside of your life that you learn to delegate with and that can take things off of your plate to increase your value. If you're, approving payroll for your team, it's an important task, but it's not a high value task for you and your talents. That's someone that you can train to do that.
Hey, just a quick time out from the show. If you're a frustrated contractor who's dealing with low profit margins, stuck working on the tools every day, or doing free estimates for people who are never going to hire you in the first place, I invite you to my private contractor community, the Profit Club, where contractors just like you are adding 2 to 3 times more profit each year without producing any more jobs, and finally getting completely off the tools to never do another free estimate again. So if you're ready to increase your profits, stop doing free estimates, and get off the tools, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Profit Club and see how it can easily 2 to 3 times the cash in your pocket, give you a proven sales process that will convert more jobs with ease and get you off the tools once and for all. And the best part is, you can do all of this without having to produce more jobs than you currently are. Click the link to learn more. Now let's get back to the show.
And so start with an executive assistant, run that for, 18, 24 months. If that works well and the business continues to grow, look for an office manager. From an office manager, you can look for, a director of operations inside of the organization, and just stack people that are going to take things off of your plate for you and just continue to bring clarity and organization to the business.
Yeah, absolutely. When I hired it was several years before I hired an office manager. And then after I hired her, I was like, I don't even know how I ran my business. Like,
yeah, what was I doing for the last 5 years? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there were things when I was running the business, and I had employees, but I didn't have an office manager, right? And so, like, there were things that I wanted to do that were so low value tasks, but high impact customer service I just didn't do. Like, for example, writing handwritten thank you cards to customers, right? High value, high touch point for the customers and the experience. But I just didn't have enough time. Like, it was such a low value thing that it was like number 54 on the list of things I need to get done, right? The second I hired an office manager, I'm like, boom, make sure you do this, right? Because now they have more time. And I was worried when I hired my first one that I wasn't going to have enough time, like enough work.
Sure.
I wasn't going to have enough work for them to, like, 40 hours a week. And like in the first week, I'm like, oh yeah, I got plenty of work. I probably got 60 hours a week worth of work now, that I know that you can do all these things.
100%. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say that is, like, don't be scared to hire someone sooner instead of trying to wait long like I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I waited years because that person is going to add value to your business, but they're also going to relieve so much stress for you as the owner, because now you're not doing all the tedious little things that you have to do. Saturday morning, you got to work for 4 hours and you got to get the guys' timesheets together and go over them and, do all this other stuff that you can just have somebody else do that for you.
No, I agree 100%. It is okay to have some family time. It is okay to go fishing, right? You're not a failure in business if you're freeing up your time in order to spend a Saturday afternoon on the river or on the lake.
Do you think, this is kind of off question, and I believe this to be true, but I want to hear your take on it. Do you think a lot of guys, because they thrive in chaos, that they sort of self-sabotage on purpose, or not on purpose, but subconsciously. And so like because of that, they don't want to hire someone to help them. Does that make sense?
To answer your question, 1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that what you just said is true. I think really what it boils down to is not that they want to self-sabotage. The reality is most people don't truly understand what actions are going to move the needle inside of their business, inside of their life. And so as a result, we have just been brought up in this whole hustle grind culture where busyness feels like productivity. But the problem is busyness doesn't mean that you're growing your business. Busyness doesn't mean that you're reaching for the goals that you've set out. It just means that you're exhausted and your back is sore at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I hear guys all the time. I'm like, hey man, how's business going? Oh man, we're busier than ever. I'm like, that's a red flag for like, you're really not making the profits you need to be making. You're not putting systems in place. You're not doing what you need to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, again, if you truly are busy and you're doing all the things that you need to be doing, that's awesome. But that's usually not the case. Usually is you're busy because you're running around. I always say that you're the fireman, but you're also the arsonist, right? So like you're setting your own fires and then trying to put them out. And that's what most small businesses and contractors do on a regular basis.
No, 100%. I had a mentor very early on in my career, and he said, listen, just so you know, I'm not impressed by you working a 60-hour work week. In fact, if you tell me something like that, it's going to cause me to want to dive deeper into how you're spending your time, because there's probably a lot of inefficiency happening inside of your life. And that was such like a countercultural moment for me, because I was raised in a household where I saw my dad work, 120 hours a week. He was just married to the job. It was a part of our lives. It was, the mistress that everyone knew about. And, so as an adult, I perpetuated what I saw, work all the time. And when that mentor got a hold of me and said, listen, this is not impressive, and it actually means that you're not efficient, I was like, oh, dang. Okay.
This is such an important point that you brought up here, because there's a difference between, I got to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week to keep the lights on, to get these jobs done, versus I want to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week because I'm trying to actually like get to where I want to go faster. Right. And so like sometimes I see us all the time on social media. It's about hustle culture, and it's like, you got to work, I'm working 80 hours a week. I saw one contractor post on his Instagram, and he was like, here it is, 8:30 at night. It's dark, and we're finishing up this patio. And it's like a badge of honor of like, look at us, we're grinding it out and working late. And I responded, I was like, why don't you just go home and finish the next day?
Right.
Because like, that's not working in the business in order to get to the next level. That's working on the business, and you're just going to wear yourself out. Yeah. So I just want to make a distinction. Like there's a difference between you're grinding, working in the business because you want to, not because you have to, versus you have to, and you're stuck in the cycle and you don't know how to get out.
Yeah, I mean, if a client came to me and said that they had to work until 8:30 at night to finish a patio, my question is be like, did we bid that wrong? Did we not schedule it right? Like, there's nothing good that happened ahead of that led to that situation, right? There's some things that need to be fixed in order to make sure that doesn't continue. Because I guarantee you, the client's not excited that you're in the backyard at 8:30 at night.
No, I wouldn't be. But I see that all the time. That's why I really want to make that distinction. Is like, that is not. Yes, there's times where you have to work late. There's certain times where you have a deadline or something. But that's not normal. That's the exception, right? A lot of these guys are normally working all these hours, but they lie to themselves and everyone on social media about this is what it takes to build a big business, is you got to grind all the time. And I just want to scream. I'm like, no, that's not what it takes. You're doing it wrong.
No, I agree 100%.
Yes, you got to work hard. Yes, you have to, but and usually that's in the very beginning of starting a business. You start a business the first 1 or 2 years, you are grinding, you are working all the time, but at some point you need to be able to say, okay, I've put in all of this time. And now that I put in all this time and things are working, now I need to start hiring or delegating or stepping out of that so that I can get my time back, spend time with the family. So yes, there's a small sacrifice point, but I know guys that are 6, 7, 8, 10 years into their business and they're still grinding 70, 80 hours a week. That is a broken business.
It's a broken business, and it's probably not growing either, right? I mean, you're clawing tooth over nail to try to maintain what you have.
Yeah, that was me, by the way. I was doing all that. So like, you're getting 5, 10, 20%, margin increases, or not margin, but revenue, every year. You're growing in revenue every year, but you're really not making a whole lot more money. And so like you kind of lie and deceive yourself. Oh, look at me, I'm doing this. But in reality, it was just pure ignorance. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And it wasn't until I actually hired a business coach so I was like, oh crap, yeah, I've been doing this wrong this whole time.
No, 100%. Yep.
Well, I want to talk about what you call the freedom formula. What is that? Unpack that for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it up to this point. It's making sure that we have systems in place and that we're delegating appropriately to the right people, right? You're never going to have time freedom inside of your business or inside of your life if you are continuing to hold close to the vest those things that your business needs in order to move forward. And so, my example of the freedom formula is, let's identify the 2 or 3 positions inside of your business that you need to hire for right now that's going to take things off of your plate. Let's identify the processes that those people need in order to be able to take those jobs and duplicate them without your input, right? And once we start developing that type of system inside of your business, now you no longer the choke point or the bottleneck for things happening. And you've got people that are like coming in, doing their jobs, and all of a sudden you've got more time, you've got more mental capacity, and you can focus on different areas of the business that will allow you to grow and venture into new things or new ideas.
Yeah, that's so important. Let me ask you this. What do you see, or what do you, if you've worked with other people or you've seen, talked to other people in the industry and stuff, like what percentage roughly of business owners actually get to the level of like having a business that runs without them there on a daily basis?
Oh, I mean, in my experience, I'd say about 5%.
Pretty small
Very
number.
small number.
Pretty small number.
And I think, Brad, part of it is there's a pride and ego thing that people aren't willing to let go of, right? There's an endorphin rush that we get as men for being problem solvers, right? And so when that teammate or when that employee comes to you with a problem and you provide the solution, it actually feels good that you're the one that has solved the problem.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yourself on the back.
Patting yourself on the back. But what actually happens is you train the people around you to rely on you for everything that they need, right? And you're never going to be able to step away from your business. The business is never going to grow without you if you're incentivizing that type of behavior with the people around you.
Yeah, I've heard this, and I believe it to be 100% true. The hardest thing you can do as a business owner is giving up control.
Yes. It's what keeps people,
because you have to
it's what keeps people from growing.
Yeah, you have to trust other people. Like you have to rely on other people. You have to actually believe that if I hand you over, sales responsibility, I'm hiring a salesman or whatever, and now you're going to do sales, I have to trust. I mean, you have to verify, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have KPIs, all that stuff, but I'm trusting that they're representing the company in a good light, and that they're going to make sales, right? Like I can't hire them and then micromanage them every day because I want to make sure that I don't lose control of that function in the business.
Yeah. Part of it is you can control 100% of everything, or you can bring someone in that does it to 70 or 80% of your capacity, but they're doing 70 or 80% of your capacity in 5 different areas of the business that you currently aren't spending any time in because you don't have the ability to, right? And so if you're willing to be okay with not 110% because, they're not you, that's how you grow.
I heard a saying, it was like, would you rather do 100% of tasks in your business, or would you rather have someone else do 80% of it?
Yeah.
and then you only have to do 20%. I mean, sign me up for the 80% all day long.
No, I agree.
I hear a lot of people. It's like, yeah, I've hired people before, and then they didn't do a good job, or I hired someone and they screwed things up, or I hired them and they didn't do them the way I wanted it done. And usually, it's not the employee per se; it's the owner who did not have the processes or systems in place in order to help that employee. And so I always say, like, a lot of times we set our employees up for failure, and then we blame them because they didn't do something the way that we wanted to be done, although we never actually trained them on how to do it the way we want it done.
A great book that I read specifically around this topic right here, Brad, is by a guy by the name of Joey Coleman. And he wrote a book called Never Lose an Employee Again. And as a business owner, we talk about customer experience and customer journey and what we want our clients to experience in working with us. But we very rarely set up that same type of system for our employees. And the whole concept of Joey's book is setting up that type of client journey for your employees inside of the business. What does the first 90, 120 days of employment look like with you? And are you mapping out what those experiences are? Are you specifically showing them how things are getting done? Are you delivering uniforms in a special way and explaining why we wear uniforms? All of the intentionality in onboarding an employee. So often what I see is out of self-preservation, we're drowning. So we hire the first, breathing person that comes across our desk with very, very little vetting and skill recognition. And now it doesn't work out because we didn't do a good job of on the front end hiring that person. Now we feel like we can't hire, or it's hard to hire, or there aren't qualified people out there, right? And none of that is true. It's just you're not intentional about the way that you're bringing people into your organization.
Yeah, I was looking around. I was trying to find this paperwork because I actually have an operations assistant starting on Monday, a week.
Congratulations!
And she's going to essentially be an integrator, or the beginning of an integrator, right? And so, what I was looking for is I've been working on some paperwork that is going to be on her desk when she comes in on day one. And it's just, it's simple stuff like welcome to the team, right? And it's a little prep thing or pep talk about, love to have you on the team. And then it's like who we are and what we stand for, right? And I have the mission, the vision, the core values laid out. And then I have what success looks like here, right? What's this going to look like for you when you're when you're being successful? And then I have your day one essentials, things that you need, access card, key, logins, accounts, all that stuff, right? And so, what happens next? Like the thing of, so I'm like you're saying, I'm setting up this experience on day one, and I have maybe, obviously I use ChatGPT to help me with this, right? Like, but I mean, I have maybe an hour of my time, put into this document. But it's going to set the expectation from day one that's going to carry over into the future.
I mean, if we break this down like on a human psychology level, this person has left a job or is starting something new. And so there's fear of the unknown and them walking into the office on the first day. And for them to walk into an organized system, oh my gosh, he was expecting me. Oh my gosh, he planned for me to be here. Oh my gosh, he values my time. Just as an employee, how good are they going to feel about their potential future with you? Because they're not coming into a place that is haphazard, that's busy, where there's chaos everywhere, and they can feel comfortable learning.
Yeah, but I mean, and I'm not telling you all that to brag or anybody listening. That's not the point of bragging. It's like it takes very little effort to create this. And if you're a contractor and you have multiple employees and you're hiring the same position multiple times, you set it up once and then it's done. But the traditional hiring in contracting, especially for a trade position, they go through the interview process, and then once they approve it, they call them up or they text it. It's like, hey, congratulations. Be at the Smith job at 7 a.m. on Monday, and we'll get you going. Like you're going to start working on day one.
No, it's wild to me.
we'll do the
Yeah.
paperwork and the W-2 and all that after hours on day one. I got to get the maximum 8 hours out of you on day
Yeah.
one.
And the broken thought in that is I've hired this person to do a job. My expectation is that they're an adult and they come in and do the thing that I hired them to do. Yes, all of that is true, but they don't know how you do things. They don't know anything about your organization.
Right.
Right. And if you can like look at those first couple of days as an investment into your business and their future, right, you're going to totally stop whatever employee turnover that you're having, because people feel like you care about them. People feel like this is a safe place for them to come to work. People feel like their best interests are being taken into account here. And they're not just being thrown to the wolves like every other contracting job that they've ever had in their entire lives.
Yeah. I had a guest on recently who helps. He specializes in hiring, for blue collar. And he said, retention happens on day one.
Yes.
Like the first week is when you set all of the expectations that's going to make sure that employee stays on longer, whether it's 2 years or whatever. If retention starts on day one, and if your day one is grab your tools and come out to the Smith job, I'm saying you're already shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of good stuff here that we went over. I want to give a chance. I know you have your organization, Gathering the Kings. Talk a little bit about that. What's that about?
So Gathering the Kings is a peer-to-peer mastermind organization. We represent business owners from all types of different industries from all across the United States. And when we built this organization, we did it on the back of the mastermind principle from Think and Grow Rich, which is the #1 success book ever written by an author by the name of Napoleon Hill. And the mastermind principle essentially states where 2 or more minds come together in harmony for the achievement of a goal. That's the mastermind principle. And we just wanted to create spaces where business owners could come together, talk about problems, get creative ideas for solutions, and just do community with one another. Because what we recognize is that most business owners don't have people in their lives that truly understand the weight of being a business owner. They don't understand what it takes to make sure that payroll is going to clear. They don't understand what it takes in order to make sure that the marketing pipeline stays full. And so they just become unrelatable to the people around them. And so by creating a community like Gathering the Kings, you instantly walk into a room where game recognizes game, and there's a mutual level of respect, because regardless of the industry, what it has taken for that person to be successful.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a true mastermind setup. Like you have like monthly calls, or how does
we
that
do
work?
Weekly calls. We have some tactical calls that we do every Wednesday afternoon where we're teaching through one of the different business fundamentals, or we're bringing in an expert to teach about fundamental. Like this week, we have a profit first expert that's going to come in and talk about how to set up systems of profitability in the new year for your business. And so we're constantly bringing people in to up-level people's education. And then, once a month, we get together in a big like round table type format where we just go deep inside of the businesses.
Gotcha. Is that online or
it's
in
all
person?
virtual? It's all virtual. We have a couple of in-person events that we do every single year, because we understand that shoulder to shoulder community is just really where true bonds are built. And we've been doing this now for 3 years, and just it's been really cool to see how people have developed friendships and have grown to support each other over the course of the last 3 years, not just from a business owner standpoint, but also families. We do some family events where, the kids come, the spouses come, and it's how we interact with each other on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how important community is, especially as a business owner. I mean, we have a community within our coaching group, and I always say people come for the coaching and stay for the community, because it's that, like you're saying, it's so important. Most owners are they live on an island. They're people don't get them. They don't understand. And so like you're saying, exactly 100% true. Being around other like-minded people can really be the difference between giving up or keep going.
One of the things that we tell people as a business owner, there are 3 things that you need in order to be successful. You need a system in which you're applying your business to. You need a coach that'll help you navigate some of the troubled waters that comes with being a business owner. And you need a community for support and growth.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Awesome. Well, Jake, thanks so much for being on the show. I usually ask people to give us a book recommendation, but you already gave us one. I wrote it down, Never Lose an Employee Again. What was his last name?
Joey Coleman. What? Yeah, Brad, and to piggyback on that as we're closing, it's so important as leaders that we continue to be lifelong learners. And so, if you're listening to a podcast this long into the conversation, congratulations. You're probably one of those growth-minded people that understand that it's important to continue to learn so you can grow your skills. And liking and following, leaving a comment, those little actions help Brad be able to continue to support and grow his community so other people can get value from conversations like this one.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, saying that, Jake. And then we'll put it in the show notes. Anybody's interested in your business, Gathering the Kings, gatheringthekings.com.
Yes, sir.
Is the website correct?
I'm also,
and so we'll put that in the show notes.
Also super active on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me at Jake Isaacs, and gatheringthekings.com is the best place to find out more about our community.
Gotcha. And I think I have that information. We'll make sure to put all of the links to your socials and stuff in the show notes. So guys, you can go there and find everything that you want about Jake and Gathering the Kings. Jake, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Great conversation, Brad. Appreciate you.
So guys, that's the end of the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. You can find us on the show's Hammer and Grind podcast, or go to the show notes to get all the links to that. And remember, until next time, profit is not a dirty word.